The smell of pine and wet earth filled my lungs as I trudged through the forest, my boots sinking into the soft ground with each step. Rain pattered against the canopy above, occasional droplets finding their way to my skin. The forest had always been my sanctuary, the place where the whispers of people in the village couldn't reach me. Today, though, something felt different. A heaviness in the air that went beyond the gathering storm. My grandmother's pendant hung against my chest, the silver wolf caught mid-howl. The forest gives to those who respect it, she had told me before she passed. And sometimes, it brings you exactly what you need, not what you think you want. I ran my thumb over the pendant, feeling its familiar ridges as I ventured deeper into the woods, away from the autumn festival preparations that I had no desire to attend. Another year, another celebration where I would stand in the corner, watching others dance around the bonfire, their laughter floating up toward the stars while I remained tethered to the ground. The healer's daughter, useful when they needed herbs or poultices, invisible when they wanted companionship. At 24, I had long accepted my place on the periphery of village life. A low, pained whimper stopped me in my tracks. I turned, my hair, pale as wheat in summer, whipping across my face with the sudden movement. There, beneath a fallen log, was a mass of dark fur, rising and falling with labored breaths. A wolf, massive even in its weakened state, lay bleeding from wounds that spoke of a brutal fight. Its eyes were open but clouded, staring unseeingly at the forest canopy. My breath caught. Wolves were rare in these parts now, hunted nearly to extinction. My grandmother had taught me to respect them, to see them as guardians of the forest rather than threats, but even she would have cautioned approaching an injured predator. Something tugged at me, though, the same instinct that told me which herbs would heal a fever or calm a troubled mind. I knelt beside the wolf, expecting it to lunge or at least growl. Instead, it turned its blind eyes toward the sound of my movement, nostrils flaring as it caught my scent. A strange calm seemed to pass over its massive form. "I won't hurt you," I whispered, though I knew it couldn't understand me. "I'm going to help." The wolf's ears twitched at the sound of my voice. I reached into my satchel for the supplies I always carried: clean cloths, herbal tinctures, bandages. The wounds were deep, but they could be tended. The blindness, though, that might be permanent. Rain began to fall more heavily, soaking through my cloak. I couldn't leave the wolf here, exposed to the elements with predators that would take advantage of its weakened state. My cottage was a mile away, deep in the forest where I could practice my healing arts in peace. "This is going to hurt," I warned as I slid my arms under the wolf's massive body. It was impossibly heavy, but fear and desperation lent me strength. The wolf growled low in its throat, but made no move to bite as I staggered to my feet. By the time I reached my cottage, my muscles screamed in protest and my clothes were soaked through. The wolf's breathing had grown shallower, more labored. I gently laid it on the rug before my hearth and quickly built a fire, my hands shaking with a mixture of exhaustion and fear. In the warm glow of the flames, I could better assess the damage. 3 deep gashes along the ribs, a wounded paw, and those eyes. Milky white where they should have been bright with intelligence. I worked methodically, cleaning and dressing the wounds, murmuring nonsense words of comfort when the wolf flinched or whimpered. "You're safe now," I told it as I finished bandaging the last of the wounds. "No one will find you here." As if in response, the wolf's massive head came to rest against my lap, a gesture so trusting it brought tears to my eyes. I hadn't realized how lonely I'd been until that moment, with only the wind and trees for company. The storm raged outside, but inside my cottage, a strange peace settled over us both. I stroked the wolf's thick fur, wondering what had attacked it, what had taken its sight. As its breathing steadied into sleep, I leaned back against my chair and closed my eyes, just for a moment. I dreamed of running through the forest on 4 legs instead of 2, of seeing the world in scents and sounds, rather than colors and shapes. I dreamed of belonging to something larger than myself, a pack, a family, a purpose. When morning light filtered through my windows, the wolf was still there, its blind eyes somehow finding me as I moved around the cottage. I hadn't expected it to survive the night, yet here it was, watching me without seeing, tracking my movements with its other senses. Days passed, and the wolf grew stronger. I changed its bandages, fed it meat from my stores, talked to it during the long evenings as if it could understand every word. Perhaps it was madness born of isolation, but I found myself sharing secrets I'd never spoken aloud. How the villagers whispered that my healing abilities were unnatural. How my pale hair and two knowing eyes made them uncomfortable. How I sometimes wished for a different life, somewhere I wouldn't always be the outsider. "You're an outsider, too," I told the wolf one evening, as it lay beside me near the fire, its head heavy against my thigh. "Maybe that's why you haven't tried to eat me yet." The wolf huffed, almost like laughter, and something loosened in my chest. A knot of loneliness I'd carried for so long I'd forgotten it was there. A week after I'd found the wolf, someone knocked at my door. I froze, my hand buried in the wolf's thick fur. No one ever came to my cottage uninvited. They left their requests for remedies with notes pinned to the old oak at the forest's edge. The wolf rose to its feet, a low growl vibrating through its massive frame. Blind as it was, it positioned itself between me and the door, hackles raised. "Ilara?" A man's voice, deep and unfamiliar, called through the wood. "The council sent me to bring you to the village. There's been an incident." My heart stuttered. The council only summoned me when something had gone terribly wrong. A sickness they couldn't control, a wound that wouldn't heal. I smoothed my hands over my dress and moved toward the door, but the wolf blocked my path, its growl intensifying. "It's all right," I whispered to it. "I have to go." The wolf didn't budge, its blind eyes fixed on the door as if it could see through wood. I stepped around it and opened the door just wide enough to see the visitor. It was Dylan, the blacksmith's son, a man who had never so much as nodded in my direction when we passed in the village. His face was grim, shadows under his eyes speaking of sleepless nights. "What's happened?" I asked, keeping the door mostly closed, acutely aware of the wolf just behind me. "Children falling ill, 3 so far. High fevers, strange dreams. They wake screaming about wolves with eyes like gold coins." Dylan's gaze darted past me, into the shadows of my cottage. "The council they think it might be your doing." The accusation hit like a physical blow. "I would never harm a child. There are rumors," he said, lowering his voice, "about strange noises in the forest. A beast you're keeping. Witchcraft." The wolf's growl became audible even through the narrow opening of the door. Dylan's eyes widened, and he took a step back. "I'll come tomorrow," I said firmly. "I need to prepare remedies." Before he could protest, I shut the door and leaned against it, heart pounding. The wolf pressed against my legs, its enormous body warm and solid. "They've always been looking for a reason," I whispered, sliding down to sit on the floor. The wolf laid its massive head in my lap, and I buried my fingers in its fur, a reason to cast me out for good. That night, sleep eluded me. I gathered herbs and brewed potions that would bring down fevers and calm troubled minds, all while the wolf watched with those sightless eyes. Something about Dylan's description of the children's nightmares unsettled me deeply. Wolves with golden eyes, a coincidence surely, but an unnerving one. As dawn broke, I packed my remedies and prepared to leave. The wolf paced restlessly by the door, agitated in a way I hadn't seen before. "I have to go," I told it, kneeling to press my forehead against its massive head. "But I'll come back. I promise," the wolf whined, a sound so mournful it made my chest ache. For a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something in its milky eyes. A gleam, golden as sunrise. There and gone so quickly I must have imagined it. "Wait for me," I whispered, and slipped out the door before my resolve could weaken. The village was unnaturally quiet as I approached, the usual morning bustle absent. Eyes watched from windows, quickly disappearing when I looked their way. I straightened my spine and clutched my basket of remedies tighter, my grandmother's pendant a comforting weight against my chest. The council waited in the meeting hall. 5 grim-faced elders seated at a table worn smooth by generations of difficult decisions. Behind them stood parents of the sick children, their expressions a mixture of fear and anger. And beside them, watching me with eyes cold as winter, stood the hunter, Nathaniel, whose advances I had rebuffed too many times to count. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the autumn air. In that moment, I knew with bone-deep certainty that whatever was happening in the village, I was already convicted in their minds. The wolf wasn't the only one in danger now. And somewhere in the forest, in my cottage, a creature that should have been my enemy waited for me to return, unaware that both our fates now hung in the balance. Block 2. 3 children, fevered and speaking nonsense, Elder Martha said without preamble as I stood before the council table. All after drinking your remedies for autumn colds. My fingers tightened around the handle of my basket. I've been making those remedies for years. They're nothing but elderberry, honey, and thyme. Yet now children dream of golden-eyed beasts and wake screaming. Nathaniel interjected from his position against the wall, arms crossed over his broad chest. The leather of his hunting jacket creaked as he shifted. Right when strange howls have been heard in the forest, the whispers started immediately, rippling through the gathered villagers like wind through wheat. I kept my face carefully blank, though my heart hammered against my ribs. They couldn't know about the wolf. I'd been so careful. May I see the children? I asked, directing my question to Elder Martha, the only one among them who had ever shown me kindness. Before she could answer, a woman pushed forward, Clara, the miller's wife, whose daughter had always smiled at me when others wouldn't meet my eyes. My Lily was the first to fall ill, she said, voice cracking. She spoke your name in her fever dreams, Alara. Said you were running with wolves now, that you'd found your true family at last. A chill washed over me. I had never said such things to Lily, had barely spoken to the child except to give her mother remedies for her frequent coughs. I need to examine them, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Whatever is causing this, I can help. Or finish what you started, Nathaniel said, pushing away from the wall. We all know the truth, Alara. You've always been different, unnatural. Enough, Elder Martha said sharply. We are not a village of superstition and fear. The healer will examine the children, under supervision. Relief washed through me, but it was short-lived. And then, Elder Martha continued, we will send men to search her cottage in the woods. If there is nothing to hide, there is nothing to fear. My blood ran cold. The wolf, injured and blind, would be defenseless against armed men. They would kill it without hesitation. I have nothing to hide, I lied smoothly, but I need to return home first to gather more supplies. No. Nathaniel stepped forward. You'll stay here until the search is complete. We leave now. Panic clawed at my throat. The children need immediate attention. Would you delay their treatment out of suspicion? Elder Martha studied my face, her ancient eyes missing nothing. The healer will see to the children now. Nathan, take 2 men and search the cottage. Be thorough, but touch nothing you don't need to. Remember, her remedies have saved many in this village. I wanted to scream, to run through the forest to warn the wolf, but there was nothing I could do without confirming their suspicions. Instead, I followed Clara to her home, where Lily lay burning with fever, her small face flushed, lips moving in silent conversation with whatever haunted her dreams. I sat beside her bed, laying a cool cloth on her forehead, while her mother watched with suspicious eyes. What did you give her? Clara demanded. The same syrup I've given her every autumn, I said quietly, checking Lily's pulse. It raced beneath my fingers, too fast, like a trapped bird. Nothing has changed in my remedies. But something had changed in me. Since finding the wolf, I had felt different, more alive, more connected to the forest and its secrets. I pushed the thought away, focusing on the child before me. I reached for my basket, selecting herbs that would bring down her fever. As I worked, grinding them into a paste, I found myself whispering an old song my grandmother had taught me, a wolf song, she had called it, meant to guide lost souls home. Lily's eyelids fluttered, and for a moment, she looked directly at me. They're coming, she whispered, her voice eerily clear despite her fever. The wolves are coming back to the valley and they're angry. A chill ran down my spine. Who told you that, little one? The man with eyes like coins, she said, then closed her eyes again, slipping back into fevered dreams. I worked quickly after that, preparing a tincture to bring down her fever and ease her into dreamless sleep. By the time I finished treating all 3 children, the sun was beginning to set. casting long shadows across the village square. There was no sign of Nathaniel and his search party. Elder Martha found me as I was washing my hands in the village well. "The children's fevers are breaking," she said, her voice low. "Whatever you did, it seems to be working." "It wasn't me that made them sick," I said, drying my hands on my apron, perhaps not intentionally. Her eyes, roomy with age but sharp with wisdom, studied my face. "But something has changed in you, child. I've known you since you were born. You carry a new weight on your shoulders, a new light in your eyes." I looked away, unable to meet her gaze. "I just want to go home." "Nathan and the others haven't returned yet," she said. "That troubles me." It troubled me too, but for very different reasons. Had they found the wolf? Was it already too late? "I need to go," I said, gathering my basket. "The children will sleep through the night now. Check their fevers again at dawn." Elder Martha caught my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong for her age. "Be careful, Alara. The village is changing. Fear is taking root, and fear makes people dangerous." I nodded, gently extracting my hand from hers. "Thank you for trusting me today. I knew your grandmother," she said simply. "She understood things the rest of us have forgotten. I think you do too." With those cryptic words hanging in the air between us, she let me go. I hurried toward the forest path, my heart in my throat. The shadows lengthened as I walked, and somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, a sound so mournful it seemed to echo the ache in my chest. It wasn't until I was deep in the forest that I realized I was being followed. A twig snapped behind me, and I spun around, clutching my basket like a shield. "Who's there?" I called, my voice steady despite my fear. Silence answered me, but I could feel eyes watching from the gathering darkness. I quickened my pace, no longer caring about stealth. I needed to reach my cottage, to know if the wolf was safe. The sight that greeted me when I burst through my door stole the breath from my lungs. My cottage had been ransacked, herbs scattered across the floor, shelves overturned, the contents of my cabinet strewn about like discarded toys. And in the center of the destruction, lying motionless on the blood-stained rug, was the wolf. "No," I gasped, dropping to my knees beside it. "No, please." Its sides still rose and fell with shallow breaths, but fresh blood matted its dark fur, where someone had torn away my carefully applied bandages. Its blind eyes were closed, its massive body limp. Tears blurred my vision as I reached for clean cloths, for the medicines that had been thrown to the floor. "I'm sorry," I whispered, voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I should never have left you." As I worked to stop the bleeding, to repair the damage done by cruel hands, rage built inside me, a fire I hadn't known I could feel. They had done this out of fear and hatred, not just for the wolf, but for me, for everything I represented that they couldn't understand. Night fell completely as I worked, the cottage dark except for the faint glow of the banked fire. Outside, the wind rose, carrying with it the distant sound of howling. Not just one wolf now, but many, calling to each other across the valleys and hills. The wolf under my hands stirred, its massive head lifting slightly at the sound. Its eyes opened, and my heart stopped. Where milky blindness had been, a faint golden glow now emanated from its eyes. Barely there, like the first hint of dawn breaking through night. "Can you see me?" I whispered, hardly daring to believe. The wolf's gaze seemed to focus, just for a moment, before the glow faded and blindness returned. It whined softly, pressing its muzzle against my hand. A noise outside made us both freeze. Voices approaching through the trees. I recognized Nathaniel's deep tones, anger evident even at a distance. "Should have killed it when we had the chance," he was saying. "It's unnatural, just like her." "The council said to search, not destroy," another voice argued. "We've done enough damage." "Not nearly enough," Nathaniel growled. "She's bewitched the entire village with her remedies and her strange ways. The wolf is proof. No normal woman keeps a wild beast as a pet." They were coming back, and this time, I knew with cold certainty Nathaniel wouldn't leave until the wolf was dead. Perhaps not until I was dead too, if he could find a way to make it look like an accident. I looked around my destroyed home, at the herbs I'd spent years cultivating, at the books my grandmother had left me filled with knowledge passed down through generations. I couldn't fight them. Not directly. But I wasn't powerless. My grandmother's pendant seemed to burn against my skin. "The forest gives to those who respect it," she had said. "Sometimes it brings you exactly what you need." I made my decision in that moment, born of desperation and something deeper, an instinct I couldn't name but trusted completely. "We need to go," I whispered to the wolf, gathering only what I could carry. My most precious herbs, my grandmother's journal, a change of clothes. "They're coming back, and they won't leave without blood this time." The wolf struggled to its feet, swaying but standing, its golden eyes flashing intermittently now, like distant lightning. It was still weak, still healing, but there was a new determination in the way it held its massive body. I slung my pack over my shoulder and moved to the door, listening. The voices were closer now, but still far enough away that we might slip into the forest unnoticed. I looked back at my cottage, the only home I'd ever known, and felt a pang of loss so sharp, it took my breath away. "Goodbye," I whispered to the walls that had sheltered me, to the memories that would remain when I was gone. Then I opened the door, and together, the wolf and I stepped into the darkness, leaving behind everything I had known for an uncertain future in the depths of the forest. Above us, the moon emerged from behind the clouds, bathing the trees in silver light, and somewhere in the distance, wolves continued to howl, a call, it seemed, meant just for us. As we moved deeper into the forest, the wolf walking steadily beside me despite its injuries, I felt something shifting inside me, fear giving way to a strange sort of certainty. I didn't know where we were going, but for the first time in my life I wasn't alone. The wolf suddenly stopped, its head lifting as if listening to something I couldn't hear. Its eyes flashed golden in the darkness, brighter than before, and it turned to look at me with an intelligence that sent a shiver down my spine. Then, incredibly, it pushed its muzzle against my hand, nudging me to follow as it changed direction, moving with purpose now rather than simply fleeing. I hesitated only a moment before following, my grandmother's words echoing in my mind. "Trust the forest. It knows things we have forgotten." Behind us, angry shouts pierced the night as Nathaniel and his men discovered my empty cottage. Ahead, the unknown waited, with all its dangers and possibilities, and beside me walked a creature that should have been my enemy, now my only ally in a world that had turned against us both. We traveled through the night, the forest growing denser, wilder with each passing hour. The wolf moved with growing confidence, its blindness seeming to fade in stuttering increments. Moments of sight followed by darkness, golden flashes illuminating its eyes before fading again. Each time the gold appeared, it lingered longer, burned brighter. My feet ached and my lungs burned, but fear kept me moving, the sounds of pursuit fading behind us as we ventured into parts of the forest I'd never dared explore. The trees here were ancient, their massive trunks covered in moss, their branches twisting together to form a canopy so thick that even moonlight struggled to penetrate. Dawn was breaking when the wolf finally stopped beside a small stream, its sides heaving with exertion. I collapsed next to it, dipping my hands into the icy water and drinking deeply before tending to its wounds. The injuries from Nathaniel and his men had reopened the original gashes, blood matting the thick fur. "Let me see," I murmured, gently probing the torn flesh. The wolf stood patiently, its golden eyes, now glowing steadily, fixed on my face. The intelligence in that gaze unnerved me, but I pushed the feeling aside, focusing on the task at hand. As I cleaned the wounds with water from the stream, I became aware of a strange warmth emanating from the wolf's body. Not the natural heat of a living creature, but something different. Something that seemed to pulse in time with the flashing gold of its eyes. "What are you?" I whispered, my fingers buried in its fur. The wolf tilted its head, regarding me with those impossible eyes, and for a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw something else in its face, a shadow of something almost human. A twig snapped in the forest behind us. The wolf whirled, hackles rising, a growl building in its chest. I froze, my hand automatically reaching for the knife at my belt, a poor defense against whatever predators roamed these deep woods. Through the trees, a figure emerged. Tall, imposing, swathed in a cloak that seemed woven from shadows themselves. My breath caught in my throat. Not Nathaniel or his men, but something perhaps more dangerous. The stranger stopped at the edge of the small clearing, face hidden beneath a deep hood. "So," a voice said, deep and melodic and unmistakably female. "You've brought him back after all." The wolf's growl faded, replaced by a curious whine. It took a step toward the stranger, then looked back at me, as if torn between two loyalties. "Who are you?" I demanded, knife now drawn and held before me. "What do you want?" The stranger pushed back her hood, revealing a face that stopped my heart. She was beautiful in a way that transcended simple human beauty. Ageless, her skin smooth as polished amber, her eyes the same impossible gold as the wolf's. Hair black as midnight fell to her waist, threaded with small white flowers I didn't recognize. "My name is Lyra," she said. "I am keeper of the eastern forests, and you have found something that was lost to us." My eyes darted to the wolf, who had settled into an alert but non-threatening posture, watching us both with those burning golden eyes. "The wolf," I said. "It belongs to you?" A smile curved Lyra's lips, revealing teeth that seemed just slightly too sharp. "He belongs to no one but himself. But yes, he is one of ours. One of the last." She took a step closer, studying me with unsettling intensity. "The question, little healer, is how you found him, and why his eyes now shine gold when he looks at you." My hand instinctively went to my grandmother's pendant, fingers closing around the silver wolf. Lyra's gaze followed the movement, her eyes widening slightly. "Ah," she breathed. "You carry Moira's mark. I should have known." The name struck me like a physical blow. "You knew my grandmother? Knew her?" Lyra laughed, the sound like water over stones. "Child, your grandmother walked between worlds. She was bridge and barrier, healer and warrior. As it seems, you were born to be." The wolf moved then, coming to stand beside me, its massive shoulder pressed against my hip. The contact sent a jolt through me, a current of something wild and ancient, that made the hairs on my arms stand up. "I don't understand," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I'm just a healer. I found an injured wolf and helped it, that's all." "Is it?" Lyra tilted her head, studying me. "Tell me, have you been dreaming of running on 4 legs, of seeing the world through different eyes? Have you felt a hunger that your usual meals don't satisfy, a restlessness when the moon is full?" Each question hit like an arrow finding its mark. Yes, I had dreamed those things. Yes, I had felt a strange hunger growing in me, a pull toward something I couldn't name. "What's happening to me?" I whispered. Lyra's expression softened. "The old blood is waking in you, child. Your grandmother carried it too, though she chose to live among humans. She knew this day might come for you." "What day? What blood? Speak plainly." Frustration and fear made my voice sharp. The wolf beside me whined softly, pressing closer. When I looked down at it, its eyes were fully golden now, glowing like twin suns in its dark face. And there, just beneath the surface of that animal gaze, I could see something else, someone else, looking back at me. "The wolf you saved," Lyra said gently, "is no ordinary wolf. He is Shifter, one of the ancient ones who walk in 2 forms, wolf and man. He was struck blind and wounded by hunters using silver weapons, trapped between forms, unable to heal properly or return to his human shape." My mind reeled. Shifters were the stuff of fireside tales, meant to frighten children into obedience. Stay close, little ones, or the wolfmen will get you. Yet here stood Lyra with her 2 golden eyes, speaking of them as if they were real. "But he's healing now," Lyra continued, her gaze moving to the wolf. "Because of you. Because your blood carries the old magic, the same magic that flows in our veins, the magic of the first Shifters, from whom all our bloodlines descend." "That's impossible," I said, though even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't true. Hadn't I always been different? Hadn't I always felt most alive in the forest? Most myself beneath the moon? Hadn't the villagers always sensed something in me that made them keep their distance? Your grandmother bound her blood with a spell, Lyra explained. Hid her true nature to live among humans. She did the same for you when you were born, at your mother's request. But such bindings weaken with time, and yours has been unraveling for years. Meeting him, she nodded toward the wolf, accelerated the process like calling to like. I shook my head, trying to clear it. Even if what you're saying is true, why would my grandmother hide this from me? Why would she choose to live among people who feared and mistrusted her? Love, Lyra said simply. She fell in love with a human man, your grandfather. She chose him over her pack, over her true nature. But she never stopped watching over our kind from a distance. The pendant you wear, it was her connection to us, her promise that she would protect the secret of our existence. The wolf, the shifter, moved then, stepping away from me to stand in the center of the clearing. As I watched, transfixed, the golden glow in its eyes intensified, spreading outward until its entire body seemed limned in light. A sound like distant thunder rolled through the forest, and the air around the wolf shimmered, distorting like heat rising from summer stone. I shielded my eyes as the light grew blinding. When I looked again, the wolf was gone. In its place stood a man, tall and powerfully built, with skin tanned by sun and weather. He stood naked in the dappled forest light. Dark hair fell to broad shoulders, and when he lifted his gaze to mine, his eyes burned with the same golden fire as the wolf's. A jagged scar ran from his temple to his jaw, and across his ribs, I could see the wounds I had tended, still healing, but no longer life-threatening. Ilara, he said, his voice rough as if unused for a long time. The sound of my name on his lips sent a shiver through me. You saved me. I took an involuntary step back, my mind struggling to reconcile the wolf I had cared for with the man now standing before me. You were the wolf, all this time. Mine, he nodded, taking a careful step toward me, moving as if his human form was unfamiliar after so long in wolf shape. I was lost in the wolf mind, trapped by the silver that blinded me. But your voice, your touch, it anchored me, reminded me of my human half. Kalen has been missing for nearly a month, Lyra said. We feared him dead, killed by the human hunters who have been pressing deeper into our territory. Nathaniel, I said, the name bitter on my tongue. Kalen's eyes flashed brighter at the name. He led them, men with silver weapons and hatred in their hearts. They spoke of cleansing the forest of unnatural creatures. A chill ran through me as I remembered the children's fever dreams, their talk of wolves returning to the valley. The children in the village, they were dreaming of wolves with golden eyes. Lyra and Kalen exchanged a look freighted with meaning. The young often sense what adults cannot, Lyra said carefully. The veil between worlds thins for them. They feel the change coming. What change? I demanded, frustration mounting. Stop speaking in riddles. Kalen stepped closer, his movement fluid despite his injuries. War, he said simply. The human hunters have killed 3 of our pack in as many months. They've pushed us back into the deepest parts of the forest, using silver that burns our flesh and traps us between forms. We've been peaceful for generations, but now, he shook his head. The pack grows restless. There is talk of reclaiming what was once ours. The entire valley belonged to the shifters once, Lyra added. Your village sits on land that was the heart of our territory. We withdrew when humans came in greater numbers, choosing coexistence over conflict. But some among us believe that choice was a mistake. The implications staggered me. If what they said was true, a conflict between humans and shifters would end in slaughter, on both sides. There must be another way, I said. Most of the villagers know nothing of shifters. They're just people trying to live their lives. As are we, Kalen said, his golden eyes holding mine. Yet your kind hunts us like animals, drives us from our ancestral lands, tells stories that paint us as monsters. I couldn't argue with the truth of his words. Hadn't I seen the hatred in Nathaniel's eyes, the suspicion even in those who had known me all my life. "What does any of this have to do with me?" I asked, though something deep inside me already knew the answer. Lyra stepped forward, her movements as graceful as a willow bending in the wind. "You stand at the crossroads, Alara. In your veins runs the blood of both worlds, human and shifter. You could be what your grandmother was meant to be before she chose another path. A bridge between our kinds, a peacemaker. Or," Kaelin said softly, his eyes never leaving mine, "you could be one of us completely, embrace the heritage that's been denied you. Learn to shift, to run with the pack, to live as we do, free and wild and true to your nature." My head swam with the enormity of the choice they laid before me. Bridge or member, mediator or participant. But how could I choose when hours ago I hadn't even known shifters existed? When I still wasn't certain I believed any of this madness, as if reading my thoughts, Kaelin closed the distance between us, stopping just a breath away. Slowly, giving me time to pull away, he reached out and placed his palm against my cheek. The contact sent a shock through me. Heat and recognition and something else. Something that made my heart race and my skin prickle with awareness. "You feel it, don't you?" he murmured. "The connection between us, it's been growing stronger every day you cared for me. I couldn't speak, couldn't shift, but I felt your loneliness, your strength, your compassion. I came to know you, Alara, and when my sight began to return, when I first saw your face," he paused, something vulnerable flickering across his features. "I knew then what you were to me." "What?" I whispered, unable to look away from those golden eyes. "My fated mate," he said simply. "The other half of my soul. Fated mate." The words hung in the air between us, impossible and somehow inevitable at the same time. I took a step back, breaking the contact between us, trying to gather my scattered thoughts. "This is madness," I said, wrapping my arms around myself. "Yesterday I was a village healer. Now you're telling me I'm part wolf and destined to be your, what? Your wife? Your breeding partner?" A flash of hurt crossed Kaelin's face. "It's not like that. A fated mate isn't chosen, it's recognized. Two souls that complement each other perfectly. Rare, even among our kind. You don't even know me," I insisted, though the words rang hollow even to my own ears. Hadn't I shared my deepest thoughts with him during those long nights by the fire? Hadn't I felt a connection that defied explanation? "I know your courage," Kaelin said quietly. "I know your hands are gentle even when your heart is afraid. I know you talk to plants as you gather them, thanking them for their gifts. I know you sing when you think no one is listening, and your voice makes the birds fall silent with envy." Each word struck something deep within me, recognition and longing tangling together until I couldn't separate them. Lyra cleared her throat, drawing our attention. Dawn is fully upon us, and we're still too close to human lands. We should move deeper into the forest. The rest of the pack waits at the sacred grove. She gestured toward the east, and Kaelin needs clothes if he's to remain in human form. Kaelin glanced down at himself as if just remembering his nakedness, and for the first time since his transformation, I saw uncertainty cross his face. "I've been wolf for so long," he admitted. "The human shape feels strange. Can't you change back?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not yet. The shift drains energy, and I'm still healing. I'll remain human for some days before I can shift again." Lyra slipped off her cloak and handed it to him. Underneath, she wore leather garments that seemed to shimmer with subtle patterns when she moved. "This will do until we reach the others." As Kaelin wrapped the cloak around his powerful frame, I tried to reconcile the wolf I had nursed with this man, who claimed to know me better than anyone ever had. His movements were fluid but cautious, as if he was relearning how to inhabit a human body. "The pack will have questions," Lyra said to him. "About the hunters. About her." She nodded toward me. "Thorn has been leading in your absence, and he's been pushing for retaliation against the human settlements." Kaelin's expression darkened. "Thorn has always preferred action to diplomacy. What of the council?" "Divided," Lyra sighed. "The younger ones support Thorn, the elders counsel patience, but with each death, The calls for war grow louder. They spoke as if I wasn't there, discussing the fate of my village, my home, despite everything, with the detached calculation of generals planning a campaign. "And what about me?" I interrupted. "You speak of choice, but it seems you've already decided I belong with you. What if I choose to return to my village?" Kalen turned to me, his golden eyes intense. "Would you? After what they did to me, to us? After they destroyed your home and would have killed you if they found you there?" The truth of his words stung. I had no home to return to. The village that had tolerated me at best, feared me at worst, was now united against me. Nathaniel would never stop hunting me. Not when I had defied him. Not when I had taken away the wolf he'd marked for death. But could I really walk away from the world I knew into this strange new existence? Could I accept that everything I believed about myself had been a lie? My fingers found my grandmother's pendant again, the silver wolf cool against my skin. Had she known this day would come? Had she left me signs I'd been too blind to see? "I need time," I said finally. "This is too much. Too fast." Lyra nodded, understanding in her ancient eyes. "Time is a luxury we may not have, but your decision must be your own. Come with us to the sacred grove, meet the pack. Learn what you are, what you could be, then choose." It wasn't really a choice at all, and we all knew it. I had nowhere else to go, no path back to my old life, but the illusion of choice was a comfort, at least. "All right," I agreed. "I'll come with you, but I'm promising nothing." Kalen's smile transformed his face, softening the hard edges, lighting his golden eyes with warmth. "That's all I ask. For now." We traveled through the day, moving deeper into the forest than I had ever ventured. The trees grew more ancient here, their massive trunks wider than 3 men standing arm to arm. Strange flowers bloomed in the dappled shade, plants I had never seen in my healers' gathering expeditions. The air felt different too, charged with something that made my skin tingle and my senses sharpen. As we walked, Lyra told me of the shifter packs, their history stretching back to a time before humans kept written records. She spoke of the great wars between packs, centuries of peace, and the gradual encroachment of human settlements that had driven them deeper into the wild places. "Your grandmother was born to the Eastern Pack," she explained. A direct descendant of the first shifters, with power in her blood few could match. When she chose to leave, to bind her nature and live among humans, it nearly broke the pack apart. Some saw it as betrayal, others as her right to choose her own path. "But why didn't she ever tell me?" I asked, the question that had been burning in me since Lyra first spoke my grandmother's name. Why let me grow up thinking I was just different? Weird. Kalen, who had been walking slightly ahead of us, dropped back to join the conversation. "The binding spell," he said. "It doesn't just hide your shifter nature from others. It hides it from yourself. You couldn't know what you were, not completely, or the spell would break. Then why is it breaking now? Your blood knows mine," he said simply. Fated mates can call to each other across great distances, break enchantments, even heal wounds that would be fatal to others. He gestured to his side where the worst of his injuries had been. "Why do you think I'm healing so quickly?" I looked away from the intensity in his gaze, focusing instead on the path ahead. "You said others were killed. What exactly happened when you were attacked?" A shadow crossed Kalen's face. "We were patrolling the borders of our territory. Humans have been venturing deeper into the forest lately, setting traps baited with poisoned meat. We were removing them when the hunters came." His hands clenched into fists at the memory. They had weapons tipped with silver, arrows, spears, even silver dust they threw into our eyes. "Silver burns us," Lyra explained, seeing my confusion. "It prevents shifting, traps us in whatever form we're wearing when it touches us. If it enters the blood, it can kill. I was in wolf form when they attacked," Kalen continued. "An arrow took Soren in the heart. Elena fell next. I fought, but they blinded me with the silver dust. I heard Thorn howl for retreat, felt teeth in my scruff as someone dragged me away. Then, nothing but darkness and pain until I woke in your cottage." The raw grief in his voice made my heart ache. I reached out without thinking, taking his hand in mine. "I'm sorry." He looked down at our joined hands, a complex emotion flickering across his features. "You have nothing to apologize for. You saved me when your own kind would have killed me." "Nathaniel isn't my kind," I said fiercely. "He's always been cruel. Even as children, he took pleasure in causing pain. Yet, your village follows him," Lyra observed. "Allows him to lead their hunts, to decide who is friend and who is enemy." I couldn't argue with that. Nathaniel's father had been the village's most respected hunter, and when he died, the mantle had passed to his son without question. People looked to him for protection, trusted his judgment when it came to the dangers of the forest. "Not everyone is like him," I said, though I wondered if I was trying to convince them or myself. "There are good people in the village. Elder Martha has always been kind." "One kind human doesn't balance the scales," Lyra said, though her tone was gentle rather than accusatory. "For generations we've watched your villages spread, your axes bite into ancient trees, your traps kill indiscriminately. We've retreated again and again, choosing peace over territory. But there comes a point when there's nowhere left to retreat to. The gravity of the situation settled over me like a physical weight. This wasn't just about me, about my strange heritage, or my connection to Kaelin. This was about survival, the survival of the shifters, and perhaps of my village as well if war came. "Tell me about the pack," I said, changing the subject. "About your lives." For the next hour, as we continued our journey, they told me. The Eastern Pack numbered around 40 shifters of various ages, from elders who had seen over a century to cubs born just last spring. They lived in harmony with the forest, taking only what they needed, moving with the seasons between ancient settlements their ancestors had established. "We're not animals," Kaelin emphasized, seeming to read my unspoken questions. "We build, we create, we preserve knowledge. The human form is as much a part of us as the wolf. But the wolf gives us freedom, connection to the natural world that humans have lost." "And children?" I asked hesitantly. "Are they born human or wolf?" Lyra smiled. "Human. The ability to shift comes with puberty, when the body is strong enough to endure the transformation. Before that, they're much like human children, though perhaps a bit more wild." The thought of children running half wild through the forest, growing up to shift into wolves beneath the moon, was both terrifying and strangely appealing. What would it be like to grow up knowing exactly what you were, surrounded by others like you? To never feel the alienation that had been my constant companion. As the day waned, the forest changed subtly around us. The trees grew even larger, their branches twisting together to form a cathedral-like canopy high above. Moss carpeted the forest floor, muffling our footsteps. The air grew thick with the scent of growing things, of earth and water, and something else. A musky, wild smell that made my pulse quicken. "We're nearing the grove," Lyra said, her voice dropping to just above a whisper. "Can you feel it?" I could. Something ancient and powerful pervaded this part of the forest, making the hair on my arm stand up. My senses felt sharper, colors more vibrant, scents more distinct. The pendant at my throat seemed to pulse with warmth. "What is this place?" I asked. My own voice hushed. "The heart of our territory," Kaelin answered. "A place of power where the veil between worlds thins. It's here that young shifters make their first change. Here that we gather for the high ceremonies of moon and season." We crested a small rise, and I stopped in my tracks, breath catching in my throat. Below us spread a vast clearing dominated by a circle of standing stones, each twice the height of a man, and covered in spiraling patterns that seemed to move if I looked at them too long. At the center of the circle stood an oak tree of impossible size, its trunk wider than a small house, its branches spreading outward like the spokes of a great wheel. And gathered beneath those branches were wolves, dozens of them, some massive like Kaelin had been, others smaller, but no less powerful. As we watched, several of the wolves seemed to shimmer, their forms blurring before resolving into naked human figures who quickly donned clothes laid out on the stones. "They're shifting," I whispered, unable to tear my eyes away from the spectacle. "It's easier here," Lyra explained. The power of the grove eases the transition. A tall man with silver-streaked black hair detached himself from the group, approaching the base of the rise with fluid grace. His golden eyes, the same as Kaelin's, as Lyra's, fixed on us with predatory intensity. "Thorn," Kaelin murmured, tension evident in every line of his body. "My second, and, it seems, eager to remain first." The man, Thorn, stopped at the edge of the clearing, his powerful arms crossed over his chest. Even at a distance, I could feel the challenge in his stance, the subtle aggression in the tilt of his head. "The prodigal alpha returns," he called, his voice carrying easily across the space between us, "and brings a human to our sacred place." His gaze shifted to me, cold and assessing, or perhaps not entirely human. I smell the old blood in her. Other shifters were gathering now, forming a loose semicircle behind Thorn, some in wolf form, others human, all watching with the same golden eyes that seemed to glow even in the daylight. "My return should be cause for celebration, not challenge," Kaelin replied, starting down the slope. His voice had changed, carrying an authority that hadn't been there before. "Step aside, Thorn. I would greet the pack properly." Thorn didn't move. "Things change in absence, brother. The pack needs strength now, not diplomacy. Not with human hunters closing in on all sides." His gaze flicked to me again, and certainly not with human sympathizers in our midst. I felt Lyra stiffen beside me. "Be careful, Thorn," she warned. "You speak to your alpha and a descendant of Moira." A ripple went through the gathered shifters at my grandmother's name. Whispers rose and fell like wind through leaves. "Moira left us," Thorn said flatly. "Chose humans over her own kind. And now her blood returns, bringing with her the scent of the very humans who hunt us." His eyes narrowed. "I wonder, did you lead them to Kaelin, little witch? Was his capture your doing?" Anger flashed through me, hot and sudden. "I saved him," I snapped. "When your pack couldn't find him, I tended his wounds, protected him from those who would have killed him." "Pretty words," Thorn sneered. "Yet hunters follow your trail even now, moving deeper into our territory than they've ever dared." My blood ran cold. "What?" Kaelin whirled to face Thorn. "Explain." A grim satisfaction crossed Thorn's face. "While you played house with the half-blood, a party of hunters crossed our southern border. 6 men, armed with silver and fire, tracking a scent." His gaze bored into me. Her scent. "Nathaniel," I whispered, cold dread settling in my stomach. Of course he wouldn't give up so easily. He had always been relentless in pursuit of his prey, whether animal or human. Kaelin moved to my side, his presence solid and reassuring. "How long ago? How far?" "They crossed the boundary at dawn," Thorn replied, moving slowly but steadily. "Tracking." His lips curled in a sneer. "I sent scouts to watch them. They carry silver weapons, fire sticks, and something else, vials of liquid that smell of wolfsbane and blood." "Poison," Lyra murmured. "They've come prepared for war." The gathered shifters grew restless, some growling low in their throats, others shifting forms in agitation, human to wolf and back again, their control fracturing under the weight of fear and anger. "You see?" Thorn addressed the pack, turning his back on us in a deliberate show of disrespect. "They hunt us like animals, push deeper into our territory with each passing moon. And now they follow this human lover." He jabbed a finger toward Kaelin. "And his pet witch directly to our sacred place." "Enough!" Kaelin's voice cracked like thunder. The command in it was palpable, a force that made even Thorn flinch. "I am still alpha of this pack. You will show respect, or I will remind you why I lead and you follow." The 2 men stared at each other, the challenge hanging in the air between them. I held my breath, sensing that we stood on the edge of violence. It was Lyra who broke the tension, stepping forward with the quiet authority of age. "This is not the time for dominance displays," she said sharply. "Hunters approach our sacred ground. The pack is in danger. What matters now is how we respond." A murmur of agreement rippled through the gathered shifters. An older woman with silver hair stepped forward from the group. "Lyra speaks wisdom, as always. The question before us is not who leads, but how we protect our own." Thorn's jaw tightened, but he inclined his head in grudging acknowledgement. As you say, Elder Sarah, but the question remains, what do we do about the hunters and about her? He jerked his chin toward me. All eyes turned to me, golden gazes filled with suspicion, curiosity, and in some cases outright hostility. I fought the urge to shrink back, to hide behind Kaelin or Lyra. Instead, I straightened my spine and lifted my chin, meeting their stares with as much dignity as I could muster. I am not your enemy, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I didn't choose to be born with your blood, any more than I chose to be raised human. But I stand here now, caught between two worlds that seem determined to destroy each other, and I'm telling you, there must be another way. Pretty speech, Thorn scoffed. But words won't stop silver arrows or poisoned blades. No, I agreed. But understanding might prevent them from being fired in the first place. An idea was forming in my mind, dangerous, possibly foolish, but perhaps the only way to prevent bloodshed. Let me go to them. What? Kaelin turned to me, alarm written across his features. Let me go to Nathaniel and his men, I repeated, the plan crystallizing as I spoke. They're following my trail, looking for me. If I approach them alone, they'll stop. Listen. They'll kill you, Kaelin said flatly. Or worse, use you to get to us. No. I shook my head. Nathaniel hates me. But the others from the village, they know me. I've healed their children, eased their pain. They fear what they don't understand. But they're not murderers. You place too much faith in humans, Thorn said, but I noticed others in the pack watching me with new interest, the hostility in their eyes tempered with something like hope. Perhaps, I acknowledged. But what's the alternative? You attack them, kill them, and then what? More will come. The village will send a larger party, then another. Eventually, they'll bring enough men to destroy you all. I looked around the circle of faces. Or you kill them all, every man, woman, and child in the village. Is that what you want? To become the monsters they already believe you to be? Silence fell over the grove. Even Thorn seemed to have no ready answer. Elder Sarah stepped closer, her golden eyes studying me with keen interest. What exactly do you propose, daughter of Moira? The title sent a shiver through me, acknowledgement of a heritage I was only beginning to understand. I go to them, alone. I explain that the wolves they hunt are not animals, but people with thoughts and feelings, with families. I make them understand that peace benefits both sides. And if they don't listen, Thorn demanded, if they decide to use silver on you too, once they know what flows in your veins? It was a fair question. I touched my grandmother's pendant, drawing strength from the connection to her. Then at least I tried. Better to die attempting peace than to live knowing I did nothing to prevent war. Kaelin moved closer, his golden eyes intense. I won't let you face them alone. You must, I insisted. If you come, in either form, they'll attack without question. I'm the only one who might get close enough to make them listen. The pack erupted in debate, voices rising and falling, some arguing for immediate attack, others supporting my plan, still others suggesting retreat deeper into the forest. Through it all, Kaelin never took his eyes from mine, his expression a complex mixture of fear, pride, and something deeper, something that made my heart race despite the danger surrounding us. Finally, Lyra raised her hands for silence. The decision belongs to the Alpha and the Council, she said. But consider this. For generations, we've retreated before human expansion. Each time we lose territory, lose history, lose a piece of ourselves, perhaps it's time for a different approach. She turned to me. The granddaughter of Moira offers a bridge. I say we walk it, cautiously, but with hope. Elder Sarah nodded slowly. I have seen enough death to last many lifetimes. If there's a chance for peace, we should take it. Other elders murmured agreement, though Thorn and his supporters stood apart, their postures rigid with disapproval. Kaelin looked around the circle, taking in the divided opinions of his pack. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of command. We will try Alara's way first. But not without precautions. He turned to me. You won't go alone. I and others will follow at a distance, hidden. If they move against you, we will intervene. I wanted to argue, but saw the resolve in his eyes. This was as much compromise as I would get. "All right, but promise me you won't attack unless there's no other choice." "I promise," he said solemnly. "On my honor as Alpha." The plan came together quickly after that. I would approach Nathaniel and his men in a clearing to the south, away from the sacred grove. Kaelin and 3 others would shadow me, staying downwind and out of sight unless needed. The rest of the pack would prepare for either outcome, peace or war. As the others dispersed to make preparations, Kaelin drew me aside, leading me to a quiet spot beneath the massive oak at the center of the stone circle. Its branches spread above us like a protective canopy, dappling the fading daylight. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice low and intense. "There's no shame and fear, Alara. No one would think less of you for choosing safety." I smiled faintly. Wouldn't they? Your pack already sees me as half human, half traitor. If I hide now, they'll never trust me. "I don't care what they think," Kaelin said fiercely. "I care about you. About keeping you safe." He took my hands in his touch sending that now familiar current of warmth through my body. "I've only just found you. I can't lose you now." The raw emotion in his voice made my throat tighten. "You barely know me," I reminded him. Though the words lacked conviction, "I know enough," he said simply. "I know your courage, your compassion. I know you talk to plants as you gather them and sing when you think no one is listening. I know that when you found an injured predator that should have terrified you, you carried it home and tended its wounds instead." His thumbs traced circles on my palms. What more do I need to know to recognize the other half of my soul? Something shifted inside me at his words. A recognition of truth I couldn't deny, no matter how improbable it seemed. In the span of a day, my entire world had transformed. Yet standing here with him felt more right than anything I'd ever known. "I'm still trying to understand all of this," I admitted. "The shifters, the pack, my grandmother's secrets, and this connection between us. It terrifies me as much as it draws me in." "I know." He smiled, the expression softening his features. "And I'll give you all the time you need. But first, we must survive tomorrow." I nodded, reality crashing back. Tomorrow. As twilight deepened into true night, the pack gathered for a meal shared around fire pits scattered throughout the grove. Despite the tension hanging over us all, there was a sense of community that tugged at something deep inside me, a belonging I'd never felt in the village. Shifters in both forms moved among the fires, sharing food, stories, laughter. Children darted between the adults, some fully human, others showing hints of their dual nature in amber-flecked eyes or 2 sharp teeth. Despite their earlier suspicion, many now nodded to me or offered tentative smiles, especially after Lyra formally introduced me as Moira's granddaughter. "They're curious about you," Kaelin explained as we sat by one of the fires, a wooden plate of roasted meat and forest vegetables between us. "A descendant of Moira, raised human but carrying the old blood. You're a living legend to some of them." "I don't feel like a legend," I said, watching a young girl nearby try and fail to growl like her older brother, who shifted effortlessly between forms to the delight of his sibling. "I feel lost, caught between worlds. Perhaps that's exactly where you need to be." Elder Sarah lowered herself to sit beside us, her movements graceful despite her apparent age. "Bridges don't belong fully to either shore, yet they make connection possible." I considered her words, watching the flames dance before us. My grandmother was meant to be this bridge, wasn't she? Before she chose a different path. Sarah nodded. Moira had the strongest shifting blood I've ever seen. She could take forms beyond the wolf, bear, eagle, even fox, when the need arose. The elders believed she would lead us into a new era of understanding with humans. Her expression grew distant with memory. But then she met your grandfather, and love changed her path. "Did you resent her for it?" I asked. "For choosing him over the pack?" "Some did," Sarah admitted. "Thorn's father was particularly bitter, but I understood. The heart chooses as it will." Her golden eyes flickered to Kaelin, then back to me. "As you're discovering." I felt heat rise to my cheeks and looked away, focusing on the fire. You speak as if I've already made my decision. Sarah smiled, the expression knowing. Haven't you? The very fact that you're willing to risk your life tomorrow to prevent bloodshed tells me where your heart lies. She rose with the same fluid grace. Rest now, both of you. Tomorrow will demand all your strength. After she left, silence stretched between Kaylin and me, comfortable yet charged with unspoken thoughts. Around us, the pack gradually settled for the night, some shifting to wolf form to sleep curled together for warmth, others retiring to small dwellings built into the edges of the grove. Where do we sleep? I asked finally. I have a place, Kaylin said, rising and offering his hand. If you're comfortable sharing it with me, or Lyra can arrange separate accommodations. I took his hand, allowing him to pull me to my feet. I've been sleeping beside a wolf for weeks. I think I can manage one more night. His dwelling was simple but beautiful, a structure built into the living wood of a massive cedar tree, its interior smooth and warm, fragrant with resin and dried herbs. A bed of soft furs occupied one corner, a small hearth another. Shelves lined the walls, holding books, carved wooden figures, and small objects I couldn't identify in the dim light. You read? I said, surprised despite myself as I ran my fingers along the spines of the books. Kaylin smiled. Did you think we were illiterate savages? Many of these were written by shifters, histories, poems, studies of the natural world. I felt a flush of embarrassment at my assumption. I'm sorry. I'm still unlearning what I thought I knew. Don't apologize for not knowing what was kept from you. He moved about the space, lighting small oil lamps that cast a warm, golden glow over everything. We all have our prejudices to overcome. As the night deepened around us, we talked, really talked, human to human, for the first time. He told me of growing up in the pack, of assuming leadership when his father died 3 winters ago, of his dreams for a future where shifters could live without fear of humans encroaching on their lands. I told him of my lonely childhood, of learning healing from my grandmother, of always feeling different without understanding why. Did you never suspect? He asked as we sat side by side on the edge of the bed, the last lamp burning low. Never feel the wolf inside you? I considered the question seriously. There were moments, times in the forest when I could sense things I shouldn't be able to. Smells too faint, sounds too distant. And the moon. I looked away, embarrassed. Full moons always made me restless, almost feverish. I thought it was just my imagination. It wasn't, he said softly. The binding spell was wearing thin, I think, and now with me, with the pack. He hesitated. If you stay, if you choose us, you could learn to shift. The blood runs strong in you, I can sense it. You could know what it means to run beneath the moon, to see through wolf eyes. The possibility both terrified and exhilarated me, to transform, to become something other than human. It was beyond anything I'd imagined for my life. Yet some deep part of me yearned for it with an intensity that frightened me. One step at a time, I said. First, we survive tomorrow. Kaylin nodded, accepting my caution. Rest now, he said, moving to take a blanket from the bed. I'll sleep by the hearth. I caught his hand, surprising myself with the boldness of the gesture. Stay, I said quietly. Just to sleep. I don't want to be alone tonight. His golden eyes searched mine for a long moment before he nodded. We lay down together on the soft furs, a careful distance between us at first. But as sleep began to claim me, I found myself drawn to his warmth, his solid presence. The last thing I remembered before drifting off was the feeling of his arm around me, holding me safe against whatever tomorrow might bring. Morning came too soon, pale light filtering through the woven window coverings. I woke to find Kaylin already up, dressed in simple leather garments that somehow made him look both more civilized and more dangerous than before. They've crossed the second boundary, he said without preamble. Thorn's scouts spotted them at dawn. I rose quickly, splashing cold water on my face from a basin near the hearth. As I prepared to face the day, to face Nathaniel, I touched my grandmother's pendant for courage. I'm ready. The walk to the chosen meeting place was silent, tension heavy in the air. Kaylin, Thorn, and 2 others accompanied me, though only I would be visible when Nathaniel and his men arrived. The plan was simple. I would speak to them, make them understand the truth, convince them to return to the village in peace. The reality, I feared, would be far more complicated. The clearing was perfect for the confrontation, open enough that Nathaniel would see me easily, but ringed with dense undergrowth where the shifters could hide, ready to intervene if necessary. A small stream cut through its center, bubbling over smooth stones. "Remember," Kalen said as we reached the edge of the clearing, "we'll be watching. At the first sign of true danger, we'll act." His eyes held mine, fierce with protection and something deeper. "Be careful, Alara." "I will," I promised. Then, following an impulse I didn't fully understand, I leaned forward and pressed my lips to his. A brief, gentle kiss that nonetheless sent sparks racing through me. When I pulled back, the surprise and joy in his face almost made me forget the danger awaiting us. "For luck," I whispered, then turned and walked into the clearing before he could respond. I didn't have to wait long. Within minutes, I heard them approaching. The heavy tread of boots, the clink of metal, low voices conferring about the trail they followed. I stood in the center of the clearing, back straight, chin lifted, heart pounding so hard I was certain they would hear it. Nathaniel entered the clearing first, crossbow loaded and raised, his face set in grim lines. 5 men followed him, all carrying weapons. Silver-tipped spears, swords, one with a flintlock pistol held ready. Their expressions ranged from determination to fear to outright hatred. "Ilara," Nathaniel said, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "How convenient. We've been tracking you for days." "I know," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "That's why I came to meet you. This has to stop, Nathaniel, before anyone else gets hurt." He laughed, the sound harsh in the peaceful clearing. "Anyone else? You mean like the beast you've been harboring?" "Don't worry. We finished what we started at your cottage." My heart stuttered, though I knew he was lying. Kalen was alive, hidden just beyond the tree line. But the casual cruelty in Nathaniel's voice reminded me what I was dealing with. "The wolf wasn't a mindless beast," I said, deciding to dive straight to the heart of the matter. "None of them are. They're people, Nathaniel. People who can take wolf form, who have lived in these forests since before our village existed." Murmurs ran through the men behind him. Surprise, disbelief, fear. Nathaniel's expression hardened. "More witch talk," he spat. "First healing, now shape-shifting. You've gone mad in these woods, Alara." "It's the truth," I insisted, taking a careful step forward. "Why do you think they've never attacked the village, despite your hunting parties killing their kind? They want peace. They just want to be left alone in what remains of their territory." One of the men, Thomas, whose daughter I'd treated just yesterday, lowered his weapon slightly. "Is this true, Alara? These wolves are people?" "People who can become wolves," I corrected. "Or wolves who can become people, perhaps. They have families, children, they read books, tell stories, live lives not so different from ours in many ways." "She's lying," Nathaniel snapped, trying to protect the monsters. "Am I?" I asked, my voice growing stronger. "Then explain the children's dreams, Nathaniel. Explain why Lily and the others dreamed of golden-eyed wolves who spoke with human voices. Children see truth that adults have forgotten how to see." Doubt flickered across several faces now. Another man lowered his weapon. "Even if what you say is true," Nathaniel said, his knuckles white where they gripped his crossbow, "these creatures are unnatural. An abomination. They have no place in God's world. Who are you to decide what belongs in God's world?" I demanded. "They were here first. We're the intruders on their land, not the other way around." "Enough!" Nathaniel's face contorted with rage. "I didn't come here to debate with a witch. I came to end the threat to our village, once and for all." He raised his crossbow, aiming directly at my heart. "And that includes you, Alara. The council has declared you an enemy of the village, in league with beasts. The sentence is death," several of the men protested, but Nathaniel's authority held them in check. I stood my ground, though fear threatened to paralyze me. "If you kill me," I said quietly, You start a war you cannot win. The shifters will not stand by while you murder one of their own. Nathaniel's eyes narrowed. One of their own? What are you saying? I touched my grandmother's pendant, drawing strength from it. My grandmother was born to the shifter pack. Her blood runs in my veins. Kill me. And you don't just murder a village healer. You murder a member of the Eastern Pack, kin to their alpha. I could feel the shock ripple through Nathaniel's men. See the calculation behind his eyes as he processed this new information. For a moment I thought I might have reached him. Might have made him understand the precipice we stood upon. Then his finger tightened on the trigger. So be it, he said coldly. Better to die human than live as a monster. The crossbow fired. Everything happened at once, a blur of motion from the forest edge. A massive form intercepting the bolt meant for me. Kalen shifted to wolf despite his injuries, his golden eyes blazing as he placed himself between me and death. The silver-tipped bolt struck his shoulder, burying itself deep. He yelped in pain but remained standing, hackles raised, teeth bared at Nathaniel, who was already reloading. The forest erupted with movement as Thorn and the others emerged, shifting forms as they charged into the clearing. Nathaniel's men scattered, some firing wildly, others throwing down their weapons in terror at the sight of men transforming into wolves before their eyes. "Stop!" I screamed, desperation giving my voice a power I'd never felt before. "Stop!" To my amazement, everything did stop. The shifters froze mid-charge. Nathaniel's bolt remained notched but unfired. Even the birds fell silent, as if the forest itself held its breath. I moved to Kalen's side, my hands going to the bolt in his shoulder. "Hold still," I murmured, then braced myself and pulled it free in one swift motion. He whimpered but remained standing, blood matting his dark fur. Facing Nathaniel and his men, I held up the bloody bolt. "Is this what you want? More blood? More death? For what? Fear of something you don't understand?" Tomas stepped forward, away from Nathaniel. "Lara's right. This has gone too far." He looked at the shifters, still poised to attack but holding back. "If they wanted us dead, we would be already." "Coward," Nathaniel spat. "They're abominations. They're defending their home," another man interrupted. "Just as we would defend ours." The standoff balanced on a knife's edge. Then Elder Sarah emerged from the trees, her silver hair gleaming in the morning light, her golden eyes filled with ancient wisdom. "Enough blood has been spilled," she said, her voice carrying easily across the clearing. "For generations we have retreated before you, giving ground, giving up our ancestral lands. No more. But neither do we wish for war." She approached Nathaniel without fear, stopping just beyond reach of his crossbow. "Look at me, Hunter. See the truth of what I am. Not monster, not demon, but person. Different from you, yes, but person nonetheless." Something shifted in the clearing, an energy, a possibility. I felt it like a physical sensation against my skin. This moment would determine everything that followed. Kalen, still in wolf form, moved to stand beside me, his massive body warm against my leg. Despite his wound, he held himself proudly. Golden eyes fixed on Nathaniel with intelligence no animal could possess. Nathaniel looked from Sarah to Kalen to me, his expression unreadable. The crossbow lowered a fraction. "What do you propose?" "Boundaries," I said quickly, seizing the moment. "Clear boundaries that both sides respect. The shifters keep to their territory, humans to the village and agreed-upon hunting grounds. No more incursions, no more traps." "And the children?" Thomas asked. "Their nightmares?" "A warning," Sarah explained. "The youngest among us can sometimes reach across boundaries, especially to other children. They sensed the coming conflict and tried in their way to prevent it." Slowly, incredibly, the weapons lowered. The conversation that followed was tense, filled with suspicion on both sides, but it was a conversation, not a battle. Boundaries were proposed, contested, revised. Hunters' rights were debated against the safety of shifter cubs. As the sun climbed higher, the impossible began to seem possible. Throughout it all, Kalen remained at my side, eventually shifting back to human form when it became clear the immediate danger had passed. The wound in his shoulder bled sluggishly, but the determination in his golden eyes never wavered. By midday, we had the beginnings of a treaty, fragile, imperfect, but a start. Nathaniel remained coldly hostile, but without the support of his men, he was forced to accept the terms. They would return to the village, present the treaty to the council, and return in 7 days with their answer. As they prepared to leave, Thomas approached me. "What about you, Alara? Will you return with us, or—" His eyes flickered to Kaelin, understanding in his gaze. The question I'd been avoiding hung in the air. Return to a village that had rejected me, where I would always be different, always be feared, or stay with the pack, embrace the heritage that had been kept from me, learn what it meant to be shifter as well as human. I looked at Kaelin, at the others who now stood waiting for my decision. I thought of my destroyed cottage, the villagers who had feared me even before they knew what I was. I thought of the children who woke screaming from nightmares, of Nathaniel's cruelty, of Elder Martha's quiet wisdom. I touched my grandmother's pendant, feeling its familiar weight against my skin. She had chosen the human world for love. Now, I had to make my own choice. "My place is here," I said finally, the words feeling right as they left my lips. "With the pack. With—" I looked at Kaelin, something unspoken passing between us. "With my fated mate," Thomas nodded, a sad smile touching his lips. I thought as much. "We'll miss your healing skills, Alara." "I won't be far," I promised. "Perhaps someday, when trust is stronger on both sides, I can be that bridge my grandmother was meant to be." After they left, the clearing empty once more except for Kaelin and me. He turned to me with wonder in his golden eyes. "You're staying." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "I'm staying. Not because I have nowhere else to go, but because this is where I choose to be." I placed my hand over his heart, feeling its strong beat beneath my palm. "With you. With the pack. Learning what it means to be both human and shifter." He covered my hand with his own. "It won't be easy. There's much to learn, and not everyone will accept you immediately." Thorn and his supporters. "I'm not afraid of hard work," I interrupted. "Or of earning trust. I've been doing both all my life." Kaelin smiled, the expression transforming his face, making him look younger, lighter. "No, you're not afraid of much at all, are you?" He leaned forward, resting his forehead against mine. My brave, impossible mate. In that moment, with the forest around us and the future stretching before us, uncertain but filled with possibility, I felt something slot into place inside me. Not human, not shifter, but both. A bridge between worlds, just as Sarah had said. I tilted my face up, meeting Kaelin's lips with mine in a kiss that felt like sealing a promise, like coming home after a long journey. His arms encircled me, strong and safe, and I knew with bone-deep certainty that I had made the right choice. The path ahead would not be easy. There would be distrust to overcome on both sides, boundaries to negotiate, a treaty to uphold. I would have to learn what it meant to be shifter, to connect with the wolf blood that ran in my veins. Perhaps someday, if the binding truly broke, I would run through the forest on 4 legs instead of 2, seeing the world through wolf eyes. But for now, this was enough. The sun warm on our faces, the promise of belonging, and the knowledge that after a lifetime of being different, I had finally found where I was meant to be. "Come," Kaelin said, taking my hand. "Let's go home." Together, we walked back into the forest, leaving the clearing behind. A boundary crossed, a new life beginning, golden eyes looking toward the future.